Restoring Men in History, realclearpolitics.com. Tim Haynes, Cultural Marxism, Maoism. Here's a perspective from someone who lived under it. I think it's interesting to hear her words. We're going to read it. Z Van Fleet on Trump mugshot. We're seeing a repeat of Mao's cultural revolution in America today. You've seen it. You saw it with the riots. Z Van Fleet, a survivor of Mao's China, told Fox Friends that Donald Trump's arrest reminds her of what? The Cultural Revolution. Z Van Fleet says this, and we're going to read it. I lived through the most brutal communist regime in China, and I witnessed a lot. And now I recount one of the darkest moments I witnessed is the day when the former president of the United States was indicted and mugshot in Georgia prison. I have to say, I think America is quickly becoming a communist country. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, comment. We appreciate it. Thank you. And our rule of law, we've talked about this, ladies and gentlemen, has been turned into what Marxists call proletarian dictatorship. And we ought to be very worried about rule of law right now. Let's go on. The party in power is after its political opposition. And it's not just the president. People like activists are now in jail. Remember the meme guy that did the Hillary meme? And I believe he's in prison now, right? As political prisoners in the free country of the United States. Forget about Donald Trump. What is happening in America, forget about Donald Trump. What is happening in America is that the party in power is abusing their power and going after any opposition. Now it is Donald Trump and MAGA, but eventually it is everybody because a communist regime does not tolerate any opposition, any dissenting voice. So they are coming after all of us, including those who are cheering now for Trump's indictment and think that they are on the winning team. They are not. We will all become victims if we let them succeed. I really have a word for everybody, including the conservatives. Learn a little bit about history. That's what we do here, right? Restoring Men in History. And about the Cultural Revolution. That's what we're trying to do today. What's happening here is a repeat, and we're going to get to a cultural Marxist article right after this one. Only when people understand the history and the nature of what's going on will they wake up, wake up. We are dealing with communism. We are dealing with Marxism. We want to transform our country into a dictatorship. You see it going on. So let's look at Maoism. James Lindsay, Epoch Times, Critical Race Theory, Destruction of Traditional Culture, Key to Successful Marxist Revolution. We just talked about this a little bit. James Lindsay. Culture prevented communist revolutions in advanced capitalistic societies. Marxist revolutions failed in advanced capitalistic countries because people valued their what? Traditional culture, institutions, and values. According to James Lindsay, best-selling author and founder of New Discourses. That's why culture leads politics too, right? We say that a lot. Critical race theory is used like acid to dissolve American society and break down its critical institutions. Lindsay told Epoch Times TV Crossroads program. Marx expected that the communist revolution would begin in advanced capitalistic countries, asserting that these societies' contradictions would build up so dramatically that the proletariat would awaken and form worker parties, and they would become a dictatorship of the proletariat, lead us into an idealized socialism, James Lindsay explained. Marx published his Communist Manifesto around the mid-19th century, but the first communist revolution succeeded only about 70 years later in 1917 in Russia. We could go into that, why that occurred. Nowhere, quote, in the developed capitalistic societies was this happening, but you have a peasant Russia, which is an aristocratic mode that's still able to be flipped over by the Bolsheviks, Lindsay said. Same thing happened later in China. China was not an industrial center. It was not an advanced capitalistic society. It was a pleasant peasant society. Chinese Communist Party, CCP, founded in 1920 by Chinese Marxists under the influence of the Soviet Union, gained control of China in 1949 and established the most brutal totalitarian communist regime on earth. The Marxists of the time in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s were examining the situation, trying to figure out why Marx's doctrine failed. Why did it fail? Lindsay continued. They realized, ladies and gentlemen, that it was the culture that was preventing Marxist theory from being accepted and implemented. Mao, a CCP leader who ruled communist China from its inception until his death in 1976, was able to undermine what? the existing proud culture of the Chinese. The author said, Marxist thinkers came to understand that people considered their Western culture or their Chinese culture with their value sets as being fairly good, and despite being aware of some of its imperfections, did not want to overthrow it. So what do you have to do? Marxists realized that if you can undermine the existing culture and create a break from the existing culture and demonize the existing culture, are we doing that here? Do you see it? Tearing down the statues, etc. We've talked about it. Founding fathers, they're just slaveholders. They weren't exceptional men, which they were, by the way. They were exceptional men who built this country of freedom for you, gave you a constitution that if we protect it, it will protect you, but we have to protect it. We have the most beautiful Declaration of Independence in the U.S. Constitution, written by those exceptional men in the 1700s. But they have to tear it down. Notice the attack on the Founding Fathers, on the whites. Toxic masculinity, whiteness. Realize that if you can undermine the existing culture, we talked about that, then you can especially get the younger generations and create a break from the existing culture and demonize the existing culture, then you can especially get the younger generations to want to pick up with a whole new program. And that's the way you can affect what they call what? A cultural revolution. And that's what's going on here, gentlemen. Cultural revolution that we must stand and oppose peacefully, that we must stop peacefully. There's a picture here of CCP cadres holding a placard on the neck of a Chinese man during the Cultural Revolution. Mao called it destroying the four olds. We just talked about this in the last video, Lindsay said. In the 1960s, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution, carried out by fanatical youth encouraged to smash, beat, torture, and murder. Now, they will use violence. You've seen it here. We called this out during the riots. Certain groups were attacking people. Carried out by fanatical youth. Have you seen the fanatical youth? Encouraged to smash, beat, torture, and murder for the sake of destroying the four olds. What are the four olds? We just talked about them, right? Old customs, old culture, old habits, old ideas. Let's say it again. Old customs, old culture, old habits, old ideas of China. The death toll of the Cultural Revolution in China was estimated by many researchers at a minimum of 2 million, while an American professor, Rummel, who researched the mass killing, wrote in his book that the Cultural Revolution claimed the lives of 7.73 million people. So you have to poison the institutions. Have we seen that here? What's going on in corporate America right now today with Pride Month earlier? You have to make people think that all the founding of America, here we go, was rooted in racism. What did I just say? Thomas Jefferson was what? Just a slaveholder. No, he wrote the Declaration of Independence and he changed the world forever, ladies and gentlemen. And he wrote it for you, for posterity, for your children, for your grandchildren, if we protect it, if we peacefully stand for it. And that racism is still the organizing principle of society, said. You have to make the founding rooted in racism, right? They always go back to racism, that side, and that creates division, right? Gives them power. Why do they do it? For power, control. The 1619 Project is a series created by New York Times reporter Nicole Sherry Hannah. Well, New York Times gives it away, right? Jones, based on a claim that America was founded in 1619, not true. When a group of 20 Africans who were considered to be the first enslaved Africans in British America arrived in the colony of Virginia. How long has slavery been going on in the world? America didn't start slavery. After destroying the old culture, Marxists have to get, quote, the young generation. Now, here's where the battle is today. We have to fight for the young too peacefully. The young generation to want to grow up to be a new man in a new society, feminized man, a man that can be a woman, that understands that we aren't individuals at all. The goal is to have people, Lindsay said, the goal is to have people perceive their true nature as a social collective or a communist kind of person. We've seen this. Confusing the youth, trying to take the youth. Critical race theory takes this whole set of great values that have successfully shaped the West, such as hard work, Judeo-Christian values of right and wrong. We just talked about this. Transmitted from one generation to the next and characterize them as toxic whiteness. Quote, they put into a scapegoat bucket and they just relentlessly criticize it until people are ashamed to be associated. Don't be ashamed. Stand up. It's ridiculous. Be pleased with the founding of America. It was a great experiment that went well, and we can maintain it. We can win. It's a battle of worldviews. Ours is better. Come over to the freedom side. Lindsay, who wrote the book Race Marxism, The Truth About Political Race Theory and Praxis, said that the critical race theory is, quote, rooted in negative thinking. Look how negative and upset and miserable most of those people you see. You see the anger? Like, look, I've got my cigar. I'm going to smoke this cigar after I finish this. It's present across virtually every workplace. They would try to take it away, of course. The no fun party. They're also the no fun party, right? They're the no fun party. They want you to drive electric cars. I say drive a V8 if you want it, or if you want electric, drive it. See, we give you choices over here on the freedom side. You want electric, buy it. You want a V8, buy it. You want a V12, buy it. It is based on the Marxist concept of class struggle, which pits two social classes, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, against each other to divide and conquer. You need to divide us, the freedom side, to get power over here. CRT applies this same principle to race, dividing people into oppressors and the oppressed. We've talked about this, based on their skin color. It's an offshoot of the Marxist branch of thought known as critical theory, developed in the 1930s. Critical theory destroys a group of Marxist scholars. We've talked about this. Frankfurt School, First Associated University of Frankfurt, Germany. We have talked about this. Columbia University in New York. Lindsay cited two of the prominent critical theories, Max Horkheimer. I've been meaning to do his thing for a long time. Theodore Adorno, who said they could not describe a good or positive society, but could criticize an existing society. That's all they can do. Criticize. They don't build anything. They can tear down. We like to build things here on the freedom side. Atlas Shrugged, Atlas Shrugg's on the freedom side, right? Once the culture is made sufficiently toxic, America becomes a bad word. Don't let them take our words. Don't let them take our language. America is the greatest country. We love America. We can't talk about Christopher Columbus. Oh, yes, we will. In fact, let's do a video on Christopher Columbus coming up in the fall. We have to feel a little bit ashamed if we bring up Thomas Jefferson because we know he had slaves. No, we don't. Thomas Jefferson was an exceptional man. Marxists try to make people break off from the old culture, Lindsay said. These then campaigns such as the Year Zero carried out by Cambodia's communist regime in the 70s or Mao's campaign to eradicate four olds can commence. You see them. They don't want you to know the old history. They just say it's racist, so we don't need to learn it. Year Zero was an ideal declared by Cambodia's communist director Pol Pot in the 75 to destroy the country's entire culture, including the institution of what? What do they always go after, gentlemen and ladies? They want to destroy the institution of family, religion. Why? So if you take out family, that's like men being men, men can be women, women can be men. It damages the family. Big government programs have damaged the family. God, the attack on God. Why? Because God's laws are higher than man's. So you got to knock God out, and you got to knock the family and the patriotic, take the strong men out of the world, and then you can do this change. Strong men will stand up and say, wait, that's not right. No. We're peacefully standing against that. You're wrong. We're calling you out. We're stating the truth. Men are men, women are women. That's it. City dwellers, especially intellectuals, were targeted for persecution and elimination. Free markets are better than government-controlled markets. We call that out. That's truth, right? American principles. Private property should be protected by the city. See all the chaos in San Francisco with the crime right now? They're not protecting private property. We were founded on protecting private property. It was in Sam Adams' notes. Madison wrote a paper on it. We protect private property in America. As a result of this policy, Pol Pot regime murdered between 1.4 and 2.2 million people during 4 years of his rule, up to 1/3 of Cambodia's population at the time. Think about that, 1/3. Lindsay said that the idea of a great reset, which involves a, quote, whole new culture with a whole new model, such as economic model like stakeholder capitalism, also requires breaking off from the old culture. So listen, we need to protect and stand. The great reset of capitalism is promoted by the World Economic Forum and its founder and executive chairman, Klaus Schwab. Have you seen him in some of his outfits? This guy is something special. The changes we have already seen in response to COVID-19 prove that a reset of our economic and social foundations is possible, Schwab said in 20. Quote, the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. See, the totalitarians always want to massively reset. For what? Themselves, for power, for control. They try to control you with climate control. We call it climate control because it's a way to control you, what you drive, less choices. And you want to talk about slavery? Look at what goes on with the batteries for electric cars in Africa. Great Reset will harness the innovations of the fourth industrial revolution. Let's come back and talk about that. To address health and social challenges, among other things. Quote, WEF chairman explained the revolutions occurring in biotechnology and artificial intelligence, which are redefining what it means to be human, will compel us to redefine our moral and ethical boundaries. Reality can be perceived from an objective standpoint or a subjective standpoint, Lindsay said. For people who believe in God, the source of objectivity and the objective truth is God, while others believe the brute fact of the world is objective truth. See, that's why they've got to destroy God too, right? Got to destroy God and the family and the Father. Truth. You got to destroy truth. The world is out there, and then we are receiving information about the world via our senses. And we understand the world and make our models of the world as best we can and try to work out the details. The world itself is something that we must be humble before. That's the objective standpoint. The subjective standpoint sees it the other way around, that the world is actually that which we create in our consciousness. Some schools of thought assert that a person's true being is suppressed if their sex assigned at birth doesn't actually accord with what the person believes their true identity is. Ridiculous. Foolishness. Proverbs would say foolishness, right? You are what you are. Man is a man, woman is a woman. Quote, the fact that assignment then brings with all of these restrictions upon how you're supposed to present, how you're supposed to act, who you're supposed to hook up with or have sex with or marry or whatever. All of that is enormous oppression upon you. Lindsay described how these schools view gender identity. Queer theory explicitly says that the goal is not to create stable LGBT identities. It is, in fact, to create destabilized identities that are under absolute no restrictions or moral shackles of any kind. Makes sense, right? If you're on that side, you want to destabilize identities. If you know you're a man, you know how to act. If you know you're a woman, you know how to act. You know the goals to go for. It's clear. And a man and a woman marry and they have children. You have a nuclear family, right? That stands in the way of totalitarian societies. And if you have a moral code, a code you live by, that stands in the way of totalitarian societies. God stands in the way of totalitarian societies. Truth. According to these theories, the ideas of a stable monogamous relationship to raise children, the children are supposed to be regarded as innocent and therefore non-sexualized. Yes, we do not want to sexualize children, and they are innocent. Are just fictions that oppress people and have been created by people to maintain this system. No, it's truth. So people need to liberate themselves from these artificial social relations, the author said. Now, what he ends with is this. What that amounts to is the absolute destruction of morality, Lindsay concluded. So we want to celebrate the founding and the founding fathers in American history, and we want to study it. We don't want to wipe it out. We want it known to people. So we want you to educate people, value the founders, value American principles. We want this side, the freedom side, private property, free markets, American principles, federalism, the United States Constitution. Notice how this side does not like the Constitution. Why? It gets in their way sometimes, a little bit. We have to protect the Constitution. We have to stand peacefully for it. We don't want Maoism in America. It's here right now. It's coming in. And look at all corporate America, Wall Street. Look at all when they just collectively go in on something. It's collective, right? You see those news reports where it's like a repetitive, they say the same things, the media. And then Silicon Valley jumps in and Wall Street, Hollywood. Hollywood is one of those cultural institutions they've taken over. So if you talk about culture Marxism, Hollywood they took over. Look at Disney. Look how they destroy critical theory. Look how they destroyed Snow White. We just talked about it. Indiana Jones, Star Wars. They're destroying those great male figures and those wonderful mythic stories. Hollywood is in that orientation of cultural Marxism. But it's up to you, it's up to me, it's up to us to tell our own stories and protect this great country peacefully. So let's stand up. peacefully for the U.S. Constitution and American principles. We can win peacefully. Thank you. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, pass around. Thank you.